Hello, Abigail here with the astrology for this week. This week we get to experience the Gregorian calendar new year moving from 2025 to 2026. This is only one of multiple new years we have. There's Chinese New Year's, there's the Jewish New Year, or the Judaic New Year. There's also the Zodiacal New Year. This is just one of them, and it's the one that is used by commerce, corporate, and capital. But like all energies and all events, it has its own energy. And so while I don't personally do a whole lot of like tension setting, I do ritual around it because it is still an energy. But everyone should do what they want. But we are experiencing that this week, and we have some pretty pivotal astrology on the day. But let's get started at the beginning of the week. On Monday, we start off with Mars having a trine with the South Node in Virgo. We have the nodes in Virgo and Pisces for a little bit longer, but we are going to be starting to experience the other nodal axis, which is the Aquarius Leo one, the one we're headed into. But yeah, this is a moment of reflection. The South Node is the place where energy builds. It's a place of past life comfort. It's a place where things feel easy because not because they're easy necessarily, but because we have done them before. And all of this year has been a deep purge because, as you know, or maybe you don't, Virgo is about purification. Virgo is about breaking things down into their smallest, most digestible parts. And so all of this past life energy, all of these things that we have held on to have been gone over by the Virgo magnifying glass. And this Mars trine is going to help us move that along a bit quicker. It's going to allow us to take action. Also, whenever you have a trine with 2 points in astrology, you also get a sextile. So we also have a sextile to the North Node. So there's also a conversation and a fluidity and emotion through what progress might mean, what is completely new, what are we moving forwards towards that we have never experienced. And in Pisces, that can be almost anything. I think for a lot of people and a lot of my clients, it has been a more expanded spiritual mindset. It has been a deeper connection to things that we cannot see on like a more world stage. It is this kind of amorphous age that we're living in where we're not keeping up with things like legislation around AI. But it is also the mass movement towards liberation and a free Palestine and things like that, where we're headed towards ideas and concepts that in the past were considered too complicated. And we're now being asked to just be like, no, what is wrong. And the process will come as we set our morals, as we set our ethics, as we refuse to back down. And that's very much the North Node in Pisces. There is a far larger idea that you are connected to, and you'll figure it out as it goes along. And that South Node helps because the goes along is the South Node in Virgo. It's those baby steps. So we get to experience this trine and sextile with Mars. And so there's a lot of ability to take action and move forward, especially with Mars in exaltation in Capricorn. And so Monday is a day when I would encourage you to take action or take the baby steps that it takes to begin an action. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but if there's a goal that you have, if there's a desire that you have, I encourage you this week to just take little bite-sized things that you can do in order to move forward with this bigger idea, with this bigger goal in mind, because the energy is really facilitating. Pardon me, a little something in there. All right, so next day, Tuesday, Mercury is square Saturn. And it is a moment where we really get to, I don't want to say this, it's a moment where we really get to take all of the things we've experienced, all of the recent squares, all of the stuff, and really start to understand and really start to connect with what Saturn has been doing in our lives. Now, as always, I encourage you, go look up your birth chart, see where Saturn is in Pisces, see where, Mercury is in Sagittarius. So it's about understanding. It's also about an ability to work within limitations. Mercury is about mentally understanding and planning and ideas. And Saturn is about boundaries and limitations. And when they come together in a square, while it's frustrating, of course, it is still a moment of problem solving. And so Mercury gets to do the kind of final tying it up with a bow, problem solving for our final moments with Saturn in Pisces, because in very soon, the beginning of February, we get Saturn into Aries for the last time. Not the last time in our lifetimes, if we live another 28 years, but for the last time for now. And so this is also a time when personally we need to be honest about our limitations. On the bright side, with a detriment, Mercury, Mercury and Sagittarius, with that energy, there is a bit of the devil in this. You get to kind of play with stuff and be a little disingenuous, be a little over the top, push against certain boundaries because we are in a Jupiterian sign. But at the end of the day, we have to find a solution. But the solution, especially with a Mercury in detriment, with Sagittarius energy, is about taking your combined wisdom, knowledge, and understanding and connecting it in a kind of schemy way, in a way that is unique to you, in a way that gets you what you want, in a way that works with Saturn, but doesn't give too much ground. You get to have ideas that are a little bit beyond the scope of Saturn when we have a Mercury like this. And no, some of these solutions aren't going to be practical, but they are going to be intuitive. And they'll need tweaking down the road for sure. But this is a time to be like, these are my limitations. This is what I can and cannot do. And then maybe challenging the universe, maybe challenging your situation and being like, you know what? This is what I'm being told is not possible. But this is what I want to believe is possible. And well, yes, it's a little delulu. That is the nature of of Mercury in a lot of fire signs. It is going to help us overshoot and to believe that more is possible and to be bold and courageous, if not a little foolhardy, in our plans for the future. And I think that is essential in making good plans. Every single portion of the zodiac, every single house, every single planet, every single quality of a planet in a sign has a purpose, even when that purpose is more difficult or less functional than, say, another sign. And when we have Mercury in Sagittarius, it is about overplaying your hand. It is about pushing things a little too far. It is about bluffing a little too hard. And this energy, while it can go awry and often does, it is also essential for us to learn lessons. It is essential for us to see other people's desires and plans and schemes. It's also important for us to do those things and to be hauled up short. And so gamble a little bit on Tuesday, knowing that it may not work out, but knowing that you will get a lot of information from what doesn't work out. And you'll get a lot of information from, what you do get out of it that maybe you weren't expecting. And then, of course, the next day, on the 1st, we go into that final square with Neptune. And so the delusion is getting more and more heightened. When I say gamble, put a caveat, like don't literally do it. This isn't the best energy for that. I'm saying, see what happens when you ask for something a little extreme. See what happens when you overvalue yourself, which usually just ends up being you valuing yourself correctly. Neptune is also blurring the lines. It's delusional as well, especially in Pisces. It is vast energy that we can't fully comprehend. And so, with this square moving into the new year, believe that bigger, better things are possible. Believe that you can do more. And yeah, maybe you don't get all the way because most of us never get everything that we want for originally. But you're going to get so much more over projecting something, so much more shooting for the stars and landing on the moon. Because if you don't shoot for the stars, you'll just be back on Earth. If you shoot for the moon, you won't get off the ground. So this is very much a shoot for the stars, land on the moon type of energy. The part where you're balancing things is where you live in reality and you're like, nah, not all of this is going to work out, but some of it is, and that's the important part. And in this energy, we're not going to know exactly what those things are, but it's important that we play into it. Also, we're moving into the year, numerologically, the year of the Wheel of Fortune. This is a year of throwing your hat into the ring. This is the year of making a gamble on yourself. This is the year of, if you don't play, you don't win. You also might lose, but you're not going to win at all if you don't play. So go into on the 1st with this idea of believing in more that you ever thought was possible. knowing that some of it's not going to come true, but then some of it is, and that's the fun part. And then also because we're at 29 degrees with Neptune, so people are going to be popping off on the first, just know this. People are going to be saying some crazy stuff, some wild stuff is going to be even wilder than what we've already seen, is going to start percolating through um, from our government. Fun fact. But also on this day, we get Mercury into Capricorn. And while Mercury is neither really here nor there in Capricorn, this is similar to kind of the Venus cycle. We get a bit of grounding, we get a bit of solidity, we get a bit of just recentering stuff, doing practical things. And I really enjoy that square with Neptune, that square with Saturn, because we get to overplay our hand. We get to overproject as we head into the new year, and then instantly we're into work. Okay, you want these things, you want these unimaginable dreams that are completely delusional. How are we going to get them? And yeah, you're going to have to come back from that delusion, but you've already set these really beautiful, expansive intentions. And so now is the time to get to work. Now is the time to start planning those step-by-step stuff. Also, everything going through Capricorn, just like with Mars earlier in the week, we're going to be having a trine with the South Node, which is really going to be purifying and purging any ideas that are completely wrong, or I don't think wrong is the right word, but completely kind of off the wall. And so, we instantly get to take all of these intentions and desires and be like, all right, what's the practical application and how can I get them? And also, what are maybe some more reasonable parameters? But we need that bigger, more bloated, overt picture of possibility in order for us to believe that something is possible. And I might get pushed back for this, but that's just kind of how I see and believe in the current energy. That's just it's just amazing. So yeah, all of these really beautiful, exciting things. Then on the same day, we have the sun at 11 degrees. And it is also going to be sextile that south node, sextile the north node, trine the south node. And yeah, our desires and our ethos are kind of being like, all right, how are we going to take functional action? And for me, the nodes are a place of what has been and what will be, and the planet that is connecting them is now. And so, with the south node of what has been and all the lessons learned and all of the things that we have gone through during this nodal cycle that started last year, well, at this point in the week last year, it started last year early, almost a year ago now. And how are we going to make that functional? How are we in the sun, in our ethos, in our desires, in our innate sense of self, whatever our zodiac sign is? How are we going to take practical action? And what is the most aligned future for us? And maybe for some of us, it's just admitting we don't know, but we just don't want what we have now. One of my little tricks that I do in order to kind of exist with and understand and sit with things and manifest um without kind of getting in the way of my own actual desires and my own destiny is to manifest feelings. What do you want to feel when you get the things that you want? Because yeah, maybe you want a new job, but you don't just want any new job. You want a job that makes you feel happy and fulfilled. You don't want a partner. You want a partner who is caring and loving and expansive and makes you feel like the best version of yourself. You don't want a home anywhere. You want a home where you feel fed and cared for and surrounded with love and protection. So I encourage you, especially on this New Year's, to manifest those feelings because we don't know what the future holds. And some people are very good at physical manifestation, and if that is you, you do you. But for someone whose life has taken many twists and turns, I manifest the feelings because I'm actually okay with a lot of what might happen as far as my success. But what I really want is how I feel to be a certain way. I really want how I get to experience those things to feel a certain way. And so I encourage you to manifest in that sense. Then we move on to the 3rd, which is a Saturday. And this is our first lunation of the year. We get a full moon in Cancer. I will do a longer video on that, so look out for that one. It'll also have an accompanying tarot reading. It's a little more not fleshed out. We spend a little more time on the astrology. We spend a little more time on the tarot and the energy And so, yeah, this one is a really important one. It's in Cancer. We get to access that retrograde Jupiter. We get access to the trines with Saturn and Neptune. There's just a lot of stuff that's, it feels good. It feels necessary. And yes, do we have an opposition to a lot of planets? The oppositions absolutely all there. This is the part of the year where we go into those oppositions, where Jupiter is going to get opposed to all of the planets. But this is a moment in the Jupiter cycle to sit back and to see what abundance you've had, and also to deepen your relationship with the energy of Jupiter. Um, Jupiter is one of the deities that I personally work with, Jove. They came to me. And this is about deepening your relationship with your understanding of luck and abundance. I would also check your chart to see where your natal Jupiter is, because that really colors how you experience Jupiterian energies. Mine is retrograde. I experience Jupiter a bit differently than some. It's also in the second house, which is a place that's really personal and sensitive. And so that is how I experience Jupiterian things. And with the retrograde, there's a lot of relearning, and there's a lot of readjusting, and there's a lot of having to almost get somewhere in order to be like, that's not really where I want it to go. And so I would encourage you to look up your Jupiter and to see how that plays into this transit in Cancer. But yeah, so we have those oppositions, but we also have those trines, and it kind of, it's not completely the same, but we do have, that last new moon in Sagittarius, there was a lot of this kind of push and pull energy of like squares and trines and some really positive stuff. In this moment, this is kind of similar. We're learning about the ways in which we have to kind of face Jupiter things, and the ways in which maybe capitalism has skewed our view of what abundance is and what good things are and what the speed of attainment is, honestly. So many of people I know are like, well, I want good things. Why am I getting them now? It's because good things take time. And yes, sometimes we do get something dropped out of the sky, but a lot of times it's a journey of attaining something so that we're ready for when it gets here. And that's kind of going to be a little lesson wrapped up in that full moon. Then we have Venus sextile the nodes, which is that continued story of like, what have we learned about relationships and where do we want to head with them? And how can we take our past understandings and the past life stuff that we've been through and take that knowledge and integrate it into what we want now when it comes to connection? And then projecting it into that sextile of like, what is a functional way to get that? And this also might be a good time to especially with Venus in Capricorn, it would be a good time to start dating again. It might be a good time to focus on reconnecting with your current partner or partners. It's also a great time to reconnect with your kids with Capricorn and Cancer things. It's always earth energy and water energy is very very child parent energy. And so, maybe reconnect with your children if they're adults, reconnect with them in that child parent dynamic. We can lose sight of these permanent dynamics if we don't check in on them. Speaking of checking in, I'll check in on my mic because I didn't charge it, so we're kind of running by the seat of our pants. Anyways, so that being a sextile is the time to check in. If you're not quite ready to get back out on the streets, if you're a bit tired and worn down, this is also time to just plan something. To plan something for the future to help you reconnect with someone. Maybe it's planning a coffee date with a friend. Maybe it's planning a game night with a group of friends. It's just about being like, this is how I would like to reconnect with people. This is what I need moving forward. This is what I desire as I continue through this nodal cycle as we head into eclipse season, which is what these nodes are talking about. And then last but definitely not least, we have Chiron stationing direct in Aries. Chiron is a planetoid, a little too big for an asteroid, a little too small for a planet, also not a permanent celestial object. It will eventually, long after we're dead, return from whence it came. But it is about pain and trauma and the wounds that we carry with us through our lifetime and the people who cause those wounds. And stationing direct is going to feel good because we've been processing a lot. We've been grieving. We've been having, especially the Chiron has kind of funky transits. They're not consistent. It's longer, shorter through different signs, but the retrogrades always feel long regardless. And so now with Chiron direct, we get to start to take what we have learned, take the processing, take the therapy, take the connection to people, take the agency, Chiron and Aries, and start to apply it to how we want to live life moving forward, to how we want to get what we deserve moving into the future. And also, and I think this is a good reminder, especially heading into the New Year's. And people push back at me all the time, and I really do think it's a combination of ableism and capitalism. Some wounds never heal, and some wounds are so deep that they don't heal. And the lesson of Chiron is, how do we live with those wounds? And how do we take those wounds and, firstly, not do harm to others, not do harm to ourselves? And I don't believe in alchemizing everything, but finding a way to take those experiences and those understandings and those fears around pain and harm and activate them for our own progression. Activate them to help us learn to heal what we can, and specifically not heal, but to tend to our wounds in a way that we deserve to be cared for, in a way that others deserve to be cared for. And in Aries, it's really about, while life moves on, we have to do multiple things at multiple times. But we do truly have to work on our wounds before we can fully help other people. And it's not a static thing. It's not like, hold up, folks, I'm going to ignore all of you while I take care of myself. But it is a focus on caring for ourselves and learning to tend to our wounds in order to help encourage and uplift other people to do so by example. And so I encourage you at the tail end of this week to really take care of your wounds and your needs. And and the way that you feel. And I see here that I made a mistake in my notes. Not a shock. I have dyslexia. I miswrote this. This final one isn't Tuesday, it's Friday. I forgot one of the days in there. So the Venus sextile nodes and the Chiron stuff is on Friday. And this also starts, important to note, this also starts this kind of leapfrog game of Sun conjunctions, Mercury Venus conjunctions, Mars conjunctions as all of the personal planets. And this tends to happen for the longest time. This always happens in Capricorn season. Everything gets in a big Capricorn season or Aquarius season. There's like a big pile up and then all these conjunctions. So just know that this is also the kickoff of what is the final 2 weeks of Capricorn season, Capricorn season, where we are going to have all these conjunctions. And now we also have the oppositions with Jupiter. So just be aware the energy is going to be very like push and pull, a lot of things to get done, a lot of stuff to navigate and juggle. This week has a bit of that, but it's going to start picking up as we move forward. So in conclusion, take care of yourself, tend to your wounds, look at what has been and what will be, and decide for yourself in this moment what you are going to be. For now, knowing that you will change and shift, knowing that 2026 is going to bring a lot of stuff we have no idea about. Even with divination and the stars, we're all still human and finite. We do not know. That's an important lesson if you do divination or if you do work with astrology, is that there's always going to be an element of not knowing, and that is the wisest acknowledgement you can make. But we can do what we can with what we know. And also, all of the planets are out of Sagittarius and into Capricorn. We are getting to the final part of the year, and we're going to wrap it up. And we have some work to do before the spring equinox. So I hope you will join me in that work, and I will see you guys later.